Hello, I'm Esther Gitu-Ewart. It's Thursday, April 28th. This is Africa 54.
The humanitarian coordinator in South Sudan condemns the latest violence against civilians. As Liberia turns 200, Monrovia residents lament mounting waste problems. And the Central African Republic adopts Bitcoin as its official currency along the CFA franc. We'll explain the implications.
We begin in East Africa, where the United Nations humanitarian coordinator Sarah Besolo Nyanti led a high-level delegation to Malakal in South Sudan's Upper Nile state to assess needs on the ground and to meet with people affected by the ongoing violence and natural disasters. Africa 54 managing editor Vincent Makori has more.
In Upper Nile state, armed conflict and insecurity make civilians flee their homes, increasing humanitarian needs. The Malakal protection of civilian site is still receiving new arrivals, consisting of people leaving both flooded areas and violence behind.
We women don't have jobs that can support us financially. We face a lot of challenges that can make us go out to collect firewood that we can use and sell. Sometimes when you meet a drunk soldier, he may beat or rape you.
Humanitarian actors call on the government, development partners and donors to match their solidarity by showing their unwavering support to the people affected by unforgiving circumstances on the ground. Humanitarian access and the delivery of essential services, including healthcare, education, water, sanitation, protection and legal services, remain challenges.
With that being said, we also have a team, a very big team that have accompanied.
And the cattle came and caused problem in your own community here. It has damaged our image as a country. Because of this reason, our president have directed all the cattle camps in Eastern Equatoria, in Central Equatoria, to move back to Jongule and to move back to Lake State. So I want to say our condolence to people who have lost their life. And we are sorry to the destruction of property that happened here. The herders should move back to their counties and their states.
Continued subnational conflicts and instability in parts of South Sudan have resulted in a large-scale internal displacement of people. The long-standing economic crisis in the country is affecting people's ability to access markets, while outbursts of violence are limiting the flow of commercial and humanitarian goods and services.
We are seeking opportunities on how best we can engage the different communities to see what actions we can undertake so as to strengthen the issues around peace building, allowing different communities, especially your pastoralist and your farming communities, to see what it is that they can live with each other in the same area and peace and harmony, and therefore prevent any and all actual incidents of violence that can occur. From us in UNMISS, we agreed to support them on civil-military dialogue. That means bringing together the security organs in the state and the civil population so that they can engage and understand their respective responsibilities and obligations to ensure that everyone lives in safety and harmony.
This year, some 6.8 million of the most vulnerable people in South Sudan will need urgent life-saving assistance and protection. Insecurity in Upper Nile state exposes vulnerable people, particularly women, to severe risks of physical harm. Internally displaced women seem to be particularly susceptible to being attacked. Vincent Makori, VOA News.
Human Rights Watch on Thursday called on the international community to pressure Sudanese authorities to end arrests and abuse of activists opposing last year's military coup. The Northeast African country has been gripped by deepening unrest since the October 25th coup led by Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, which drew wide international condemnation. Regular mass protests have been met by a deadly crackdown that has so far killed 94 and wounded hundreds, according to medics. The Democratic Republic of Congo imposed a state of siege a year ago to try to restore order in two violence-racked provinces. However, the civilian death toll has nearly doubled, and lawmakers are voicing growing anger. According to an analyst from the Kivu Security Tracker that monitors the bloodshed, more than 1,300 people were killed between April 2020 and May 2021. The attacks are blamed mainly on the notorious rebel groups, Allied Democratic Forces, and the Cooperative for the Development of the Congo, known as CODECO. From May 2021 to April 2022, at least 2,500 civilians have been killed in the two provinces. As Nigeria prepares to go to the polls next year, youth groups are urging young people to run for office to unseat older generations who have largely run the country for decades. Youth-led mass protests in 2020 against police brutality and bad governance have sparked fresh interest, but Nigerian youth find there are many challenges to entering politics. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Chanting in solidarity, youth-led civil society groups and activists pressed on Nigerian authorities to sign an amended electoral reform bill. Days later, in a major win, the Nigerian president passed the bill into law.
The current bill comes with a great deal of improvement from the previous electoral bill 2021.
The bill promotes early planning of elections, inclusivity and transparency. And activists say these are very important ahead of the polls in February of next year.
The bill also allows, for electronic transmission of results. This is important because it will deepen the integrity of the results collation process, which is one of the weakest links, in our electoral process.
But the bill is only a means to an end. It's not the reason Nigeria's youths are keen about next year's elections, says God Bless Utubere, one of the organizers of the electoral reform demonstration.
NSAS was just a reawakening to say, hey, young people, wake up. You are not on the table. There are people on the table that clearly don't have your mentality and are not thinking the way you're thinking.
In October 2020, protests against police brutality rocked nearly every Nigerian city for about 2 weeks. Young activists demanded the disbandment of SARS, or the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian police, over a long history of torture and extrajudicial killings. But the protesters later expanded their demands to include calls for better governance and accountability. The protests were met with a fierce crackdown by authorities and were halted. But young activists say the aftermath is the birth of a politically conscious youth population.
Young people are becoming more aware of the very important role that young people have to play in our political system, in democracy, in governance issues largely. Many young people showing their aspirations, whether it is just a simple declaration that we've seen a few younger people also say, I'd like to be the governor of the state or the president of Nigeria.
For decades, Nigeria's political positions have been mostly occupied and controlled by older citizens, but young activists say that could change soon. They are aiming to occupy up to 50% of the political seats, mostly at parliament and local government levels, by next year. And to achieve this, they say more young people must be legally registered to vote. For weeks, God bless Otubere and his team have pitched their tent in Abia State, southeastern Nigeria, and have been offering voter education to local communities there. Otubere heads the non-profit Ready to Lead Africa initiative, which focuses on youth-centered advocacy and leadership. He says one community at a time, they're winning the interest of young voters and getting them registered for next year's elections.
The goal is to register as many people as possible, especially first-time voters across Nigeria. Ready to Vote is mobilizing first-time voters, getting them registered so that they can vote in 2023 and other elections moving forward. And Ready to Vote is not just going to happen.
The initiative is expanding to 11 other Nigerian states in the coming months. But it is not the only initiative encouraging youth participation in politics. The Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement Africa, or YAGA Africa, has been mentoring young aspirants and providing them with financial support to run for office. Political campaigns in Nigeria can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the aspirant and political party.
Is very important for young people who are running for office, and we encourage young people to actually have a budget or have a plan on how you're going to raise money, whether it is from family, whether it's from friends, whether you're going to crowdfund one way or another. Thankfully, there are also some organizations that are able to provide some levels of support.
Next year's polls are arguably the most significant in Nigeria's recent history. Experts say issues of police brutality will be remembered as the days get closer and could influence decisions of thousands of voters. But activists say they're simply upholding a promise they made to thousands of EndSARS protesters to stand up to political orders that do not represent their interests. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Somalia's lawmakers on Thursday elected Sheikh Adan Mohamed Noor as their new speaker in a vote that was delayed Wednesday due to disagreements over who would be in charge of the security of the venue of the vote. Noor was elected after a tense standoff between the African Union peacekeepers and local police. On Wednesday, police loyal to President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed turned away lawmakers attempting to enter the airport hangar where the vote was taking place, telling them it had been postponed. Somalia's delayed election process has been beset by Islamist violence and a past struggle between President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. Soon after the vote, both President Mohamed and Prime Minister Roble sent congratulatory messages to Noor on their Twitter accounts. On Tuesday, Abdi Hashi, a long-serving senator and critic of the president, was re-elected as Speaker of the Upper House. The United Nations says Central African Republic has adopted Bitcoin as its official currency alongside the CFA franc. In addition, the CAR presidency announced that it is legalizing the use of cryptocurrencies, claiming it is the first country to do so in Africa. Africa 54 technology correspondent Paul Ndiho has more.
The Central African Republic has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. The president's office announced on Wednesday. It becomes the second country to do so after El Salvador. Lawmakers unanimously adopted a bill that made Bitcoin legal tender alongside the CFA and legalized the use of cryptocurrencies. Abolaj Ondunju, a Nigerian Bitcoin trader, has made significant shift in business by selling mobile phones from a cramped shop. He started paying his suppliers in Bitcoin because it was easier and quicker.
Trade with Bitcoin, which is a very easy way of doing business. Because with Bitcoin, you don't have to pay charges. You don't have to pay, you don't have to buy dollars. You don't have to convert your naira to dollar before you buy. Because you are buying directly, when you buy a Bitcoin, you are buying directly in dollar and you send through dollar.
A leading opposition figure contested the vote and said the move aimed at undermining the CFA. According to the UN, the Central African Republic is the second least developed country in the world and one of the most troubled nations. Critics say most of the country has no electricity, it's completely cut off the grid, and the majority of the population have no access to the internet. And undoubtedly, many Central Africans do not know what cryptocurrencies are. Cryptocurrency transactions in Africa are growing rapidly. Virtual currencies offer advantages for a young, tech-savvy population on a continent that already embraces mobile money.
Major investment because Bitcoin keeps getting higher every year. And so people are seeing it as an investment opportunity, making the switch. And then also there is the ease that sending money or doing transactions in general with Bitcoin brings.
According to data from the US blockchain research firm Chainalysis, found that between July 2020 and June 2021, Africans received more than $105 billion worth of cryptocurrency payments, an increase of 1,200% from the previous year. Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria are among the top countries for cryptocurrency use. But perhaps it's worth noting that Nigeria has since introduced its own cryptocurrency, the e-Naira, and banned all financial transactions involving other cryptocurrencies. In the United States, after a relatively calm 2021, the Bitcoin has experienced wild swings in 2022, surging from under $35,000 at the start of the year, peaking at over $60,000 before returning to $39,000 in April. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
Officials of the African Union today are commemorating the International Girls in ICT Day. It focuses on the empowerment of young women in the information communications technology sector by collaborating with several agencies under the United Nations banner in launching the second phase of the African Girls Can Code initiative. VOA's Mike Hovey attended the virtual event being held in Tanzania and has filed this report.
The African Girls Can Code initiative is a 4-year project which started in 2018 and runs until the end of 2022. Its goal is to equip young African girls aged 17 to 25 with technology-related skills so that they can capitalize on Africa's fastest growing sector. Anoziva Marindire, the AU communications representative, said the African Girls Can Code initiative is tackling a range of issues.
We already have issues in regards to gender inequalities within education, within the workplace, etc. And whilst ICTs have the potential to improve or reduce the gaps within these inequalities, it also has the potential to really increase the gaps as well.
Rwanda, Africa's leading country in the ICT sector, is amongst the countries prioritized by the Africa Girls Can Code initiative. Rwanda's representative, Munezero Jocelyn, urges African governments to heavily invest in women and the ICT industry.
It is a bad thing that girls we are going to enter in the code, they are going to do this job, knowing what importance that ICT it can give to the society.
Natsai Ndebele, an ICT expert based in San Francisco and the founder of Our Journey Through Code, applauds the AU and partnering global agencies for promoting diversity in the global ICT sector.
This program could be the first step or the first seed planted for a lot of these girls to go in and be change makers within this industry. There's still not that many Black women within this industry. African women even make up a smaller subset of this.
As the African Girls Can Code program is relaunched, officials say it will be implemented in 11 African countries. Reporting for Voice of America, I'm Mike Hovey.
Still to come, Liberia's capital city of Monrovia chokes under the weight of pollution, and residents say enough is enough. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living. right here on VOA.
U.S. President Joe Biden has called Russia's actions in Ukraine a genocide, and legal experts say there is a basis to make the case. Licia Bakalatz explains in this report, narrated by Anna Rice.
President Biden has made it clear where he stands on the issue of Russian atrocities in Ukraine.
Yes, I call this genocide because it becomes clearer and clearer that Putin is just trying to wipe out the idea of invading Ukraine.
But French President Emmanuel Macron is not using this term.
Le mot de génocide a un sens.
The word genocide has a very particular meaning, and it's up to lawyers, not politicians, to define it.
The term genocide was coined at the end of the Second World War by a Polish lawyer of Jewish descent, Raphael Lemkin. It has a specific definition, say scholars.
The definition of genocide under international law is the intentional destruction of a group in whole or in part. And if that group is targeted according to its national identity, its ethnic identity, its racial or religious identity.
To prove genocide means to prove that war crimes were committed with malicious intent. International law experts are debating whether Russian actions qualify as genocide. Comments by President Vladimir Putin could contribute to the case against Russia, say these experts.
He's created a narrative, a justifying narrative for Russian aggression, which involves some combination of a failure, a refusal to acknowledge that there are such people as Ukrainians, that have a group that has a kind of fundamental legitimacy and a right to self-determination.
While neither Russia nor Ukraine are a party to the International Criminal Court, experts say the court can still investigate Russia's crimes. But they add it would be better to create a separate tribunal for that purpose.
An international tribunal is needed so that the whole world could unite and condemn Russia for the crimes it has committed and continues to commit.
Yet it's unlikely Putin will be brought to trial, even if a tribunal establishes that Russia's actions in Ukraine constitute genocide, say experts. More likely is that lower-ranking offenders might be captured and put on trial.
None of these courts have a police force at their disposal. They have no way to actually capture someone. So the person has to be apprehended and then handed over to the court by some other actor.
Yet these difficulties have not stopped the collection of evidence of genocide against Ukrainians. By opening an investigation early, experts say, the evidence gets documented soon after the crimes are committed. They can also be made public as early as possible. For Licia Bakalatz in Washington, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Liberia's capital city of Monrovia is choking under the weight of pollution. Piles of household and industrial rubbish in the capital has built up and is not always collected by sanitation companies who are paid by the World Bank to collect the waste. Clara Frank has more.
Youth leader Archie Gabeze has seen his neighbors in corrugated iron shacks grapple with flash floods, a crumbling coastline, and a devastating Ebola epidemic. But he cannot come to terms with the state of the nearby beach, patches of sand barely visible beneath the rubbish.
And these things are not actually okay. They pose a serious threat not just to the marine species, but also to us as residents. But our capacity in terms of addressing these situations are somehow limited, very limited. And central government is in no way having a kind of mindset of in any sort of a form to come and address the kind of plight we are faced with as community people.
Many in Liberia's congested capital, Monrovia, say a lack of waste management has become a full-blown crisis, with rubbish overflowing on streets and lapping at doorsteps of the poor. There are only 3 designated dump sites in the city center and few garbage trucks with sporadic collection times. Mounds of trash can grow 2 meters high and, at their worst, span an entire block before being removed. Monrovia Mayor Jefferson Koije says there are plans to expand the truck fleet and make collections regular, and that 120 waste monitors have been hired for the worst affected areas. But the problem must be tackled collectively, he says.
Liberia is the only place where residents believe that their waste should not be paid for. They do not pay for waste. They just take waste and place it to a public place, and they expect people to come and get it out. And when they put it there, they say it is the mayor's responsibility to do that. And I think it's something that we trying to encourage them to readjust their mind, to reconsider their mind. I don't think it is that kind of a mindset. It's not in alignment of good citizenry.
Foreign diplomats have criticized authorities in Monrovia for half-hearted cleanup measures, raising ire among officials like Koji, who pointed to inadequate donor support. Clara Frank, VOA News.
As the World Press Freedom Day draws near, we continue to focus on press freedom in Africa. VOA Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos reports on press freedom in Angola and Mozambique.
Well, it seems like in terms of numbers, in terms of statistics, both countries are improving, but that does not mean that the press is free at all. You see, Mozambique and Angola, they've been ruled by the same party since 1975. In Angola is MPLA, in Mozambique is Frelimo. So these two parties, they own everything in the country. They control the media, they control the main business, and it's not easy, for example, in Angola, for independent media to come and criticize or highlight issues related to corruption. If you do so, you are either persecuted or your life becomes a little bit complicated, because you want to lead your life in a better way, they'll be after you. The same situation in Mozambique, which is also facing these insurgents, which adds to more control of the media by the government. Having all the media, almost all the main media like TV and radio controlled by the government is not a good scenario. Private media only works mostly with papers, but if you consider the level of illiteracy in these two countries, it's actually radio and TV that they can portray more information. So there's a room for improvement. But still, journalists are not free at all to report on the sensitive issues. And in Angola, it's going to be a little bit difficult this year since elections are coming.
VOA Portuguese reporter Amancio Vilanculos with that report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our new Facebook page, facebook.com/VOA Africa. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.